get x minus 2 equal to 0, right? Now, since we have a denominator or a fraction here, this is our fraction. Because of that fraction, we have to find the LCD. At the same time, I'm sure you can agree with me that if x is 2, the denominator becomes what? 0. If x is equal to 2, the denominator becomes what? 0. Therefore, this fraction becomes invalid, and the whole equation becomes invalid. So we have to put a restriction, and the restriction is going to be this. X can never be what? 2. If you get your answer as a 2 and you consider it as a solution to that equation, it will be incorrect. Because if you substitute x equal to 2 there, you get a denominator which is 0. And we don't want denominators that are equal to 0. So when you're solving equations involving fractions, check if there are some restrictions. Okay? Especially if x is part of a denominator, then you must check if there are any restrictions. So the restriction we have here is that x can never be what? 2. Yes. Okay. Look here. Let's say you solve this equation, whichever way you solve it, and you get your answer is x equal to 2. Remember, if you want to check if the answer is correct, you have to substitute back into the original equation, isn't it? So if you put x equal to 2 here, put x equal to 2 here. For this fraction part, you have a problem because 2 minus 2 is what? Is 0. And what is 12 divided by 0? Undefined. If undefined, 12 divided by 0 will be undefined. Therefore, for this equation, x can never be what? 2. Right? So let's find the LCD. So the denominator of x is a 1, denominator of 5 is a 1. The denominator of 12, obviously, is x minus 2. So the LCD is going to be x minus 2. Okay? Once we get our LCD, then we use it to eliminate any denominators. Okay? I hope you know this. So you multiply this x by the LCD, the 1 by the LCD. You do the same here. Multiply this x here by, this 1 by the LCD, the 5 by the LCD. Since the denominator here is equivalent to the LCD doesn't influence this term here. It remains as is. Okay? When that happens, you should know this by now. This is not something which is supposed to be new to you. No. So we end up getting our first term as x times x minus 2. Second term is 5 times x minus 2. The third term, it becomes positive 12 because of the common denominator. Okay? The reason why we have to determine the LCD is for us to be able to add the numerators. You can't add fractions when the denominator is not the same. Okay? Then, once we get to this point here, we remove brackets. Obviously, that term there should be a clue to you that you have to create a quadratic equation. Alright? Then you simplify until you get your standard form of a quadratic equation. Then, you have to check if it can be factorized. Otherwise, use the quadratic formula. Okay? The quadratic formula is the best way of, or rather is the best way that you can use in order for you to determine the solution of any quadratic equation. Going forward, be aware, that's the best method. But if you can pick it up that, okay, you can factorize it and you have the confidence to do so, then go ahead. So here, this trinomial can be factorized. And you get x plus 2 times x plus 1 equal to 0. So you get two solutions, x equal to minus 2 and x equal to negative 1. Fortunately, both our answers, okay, in both our answers, we don't have x equal to 2, which means both these two solutions, they are valid. If we had got x equal to 2, then we have to reject it. Okay? Right. Please be aware that from this step, we can use the quadratic formula. In fact, let me do it on the side. Okay? So here, you write the formula, the quadratic formula x equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Our b is positive 3, so that will be 3 squared. Minus 4a is 1, c is 3, sorry 2, c is 2. This is all over 2 times 1. So you get minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 8 all over 2. And that will give us minus 3 plus or minus 1 all over 2. Then when you simplify, the minus 3 minus 1 gives me minus 4 over 2. I'll get minus 2. Then minus 3 plus 1, I'll get negative 2 over 2. I'll get x equal to minus 1. Okay? So when you get to this standard form here, okay, please be aware that there will be more than one option to carry on after that in order to solve for x. If the trinomial can be factorized, if you can factorize, do so. Okay, some trinomials may not be factorized. Be aware of that. So you don't have to waste time. Okay? If you don't like to factorize, then you can use the quadratic formula. Right? It can also be solved by completing the square from this step. Remember, the quadratic formula comes from completing the square, as I showed you yesterday. But generally, from my experience, the method of completing the square is not favored by most people. So I don't encourage it. I would rather say factorize or use the quadratic formula. But the best method is just to use the quadratic formula. Because with the quadratic formula, you can solve any quadratic equation, whether it can be factorized or not. Okay? Any question? A positive. Then here you have plus 1 over a, so 1 over 1 equal to 0. So I skipped that step. Okay, last year I didn't show this step, but I just explained it. Then from there now, you have got, okay, forget about this step here, right? So this minus here, please, this is very important. Because some of you might wonder, okay, you might wonder, what's happening? This plus here is going to end up becoming a negative because of this minus here. So we are dividing a positive numerator and a negative denominator. So it means in the end that fraction becomes what? Negative. So on the next page now, we have this, okay, or I would say we are here, because I've already factorized on the previous page. Is that clear to everybody? Huh?
Yes.
Are you sure? Yes. Right. Then we now need to find the LCD. Finding the LCD is not a complicated thing. Okay? What you do, you look at your denominators. So here we have a minus 3 multiplying a plus 2. Here we have got a minus 3, which is the same as this. Isn't that so? Right? Then here we have got a 1. What that means is, if I want to create the LCD here, which term should I multiply that a minus 3 with? A plus 2. What that means is, this is going to be the LCD. Because a minus 3 is a factor of this denominator. Also 1 is a factor of that denominator. Remember, your LCD is also called the lowest common multiple. What is a multiple in maths? How would you define it? Let's say you go to Galleria with your parents, you are walking into the mall, right? Maybe it's a weekend, okay?